Good evening. Good evening. Welcome. My name is Pat Quitzel. I am the buyer and author program coordinator at Magic City Books, and I want to thank all of you. Over 100 of you are logged in now and watching with us on Zoom. We've got more over on Facebook Live watching. And I want to thank you all for spending a little bit of your Monday evening with us. Can't believe it is already August, and here we are. We have been doing virtual events now for 3 months, and it feels like 3 years. And we are, we've got a full schedule planned for August and September, and we're booking into October now, and going to continue with virtual events for the foreseeable future. We're always on Mondays, we're always on Thursdays, and then we're often also doing ones Tuesdays or Wednesday nights. This week, our Wednesday night event is with the legendary John Waters, film director, artist, and general bon vivant. And he is got a new, his latest book is out in paperback. We were originally scheduled to do that event in May in person, and we were a great in-person event at Will Rogers High School, the site of a lot of our great author events through the last couple of years. And COVID happens, and we weren't able to do it, but we were able to get him to do a virtual event with us, and so we're still doing that. You can get tickets at MagicCityBooks.com for that event, and you get a book and the link to the Zoom event. And on Thursday night, we've got two great suspense writers, Riley Sager and Sherry Lapina, joining us. Those events are both at 7 o'clock. We're almost always at 7 o'clock Central Time, and posted on Zoom, and when they're free and open to the public on Facebook Live as well. So want to thank you all for spending this time with us tonight, and hope that you'll join us for some future author events going forward. MagicCityBooks.com is a great place to go to be able to see all of those virtual events, and you're able to click on a link to purchase the books that are featured in all of those virtual events. Our Square store has all of the past, or many of our past events and all of our upcoming events there in the store, including Russell Cobb's The Great Oklahoma Swindle, which is the book we're all here to hear a little bit more about tonight. We are thrilled to be doing this. This is another one that we were going to be doing in person. We had it all kind of scheduled when Russ was going to be back in Oklahoma. And we were really excited to do that. We were going to have a really big crowd gather together like a lot of our Magic City Books events. We know how important these books about our own community, about our state, about Tulsa are to the readers here in Northeast Oklahoma, and especially at Magic City Books. And we were really excited about it. And then, we, like everyone else, have been forced into doing things a different way. And so we're really excited to be able to have Russ join us tonight and spend a little bit of time talking about that. And one of the great things that Zoom has allowed is the connection between authors and moderators. And so we're really fortunate tonight to have Apollonia Pina with us tonight. Apollonia did work a little bit with Russ on the book and doing some research. She's very active working here in and around the Tulsa area in Northeast Oklahoma. She's a Muskogee Creek citizen and does a lot of research in Native work, in music, and just a lot of different things. And she's done some really great work recently around the Juneteenth celebration and the rally that happened in Tulsa. And then Russell Cobb is a native Tulsan who now teaches at the University of Alberta. Did I get that right? Yes. And many of you may remember him from some of the articles that he wrote with This Land Press. He's been on This American Life and many other programs. The Great Oklahoma Swindle, the book that we're here to discuss tonight, is really a more first-person account of our part of the country than a lot of the other books that have garnered attention, but haven't quite gotten the story quite right. And we've had a lot of drop-in reporters, and many of them have done a good job reporting on what happens in Oklahoma or in Kansas or in other parts of our area of the country. But they don't really know it in the same way that a native does, that a native to the area does. And so we're really excited that this book exists and is something that many of you already have picked up and have devoured, and others we hope that you'll be able to get a copy after tonight's discussion. We'll be posting links in the chat and links to some of the upcoming events there in the chat. So click on those as they're popping up and as you're listening, and be able to pick up a copy. And then if you have questions for Dr. Cobb, please use the Q&A function that we have here in the Zoom event. And if you're watching on Facebook, just post in the chat for the event, and we will get those questions transferred over. So thank you all again for joining us. We're really excited that you're here, and I will turn it over to Apollonia and Russell Cobb. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Pat. Wow, that was amazing. What an amazing introduction. I'm so excited. I can't believe I'm doing this from my basement in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. That's a little disappointing. I expected to be with all my Okie brethren to really celebrate this book and to talk to everyone about what it means for you. But I've got my research companion here and fact checker and partner in crime on a new project, Apollonia Pina, to facilitate the discussion. I'll just hand them off to you, Apollonia. Go for it.
Well, you know, usually, Russ, whenever we're talking, it's usually over sour beers, you know, in downtown Tulsa. So I'm missing that component of this discussion. But, you know, hello, everyone, too, from as a Muskogee Creek citizen. I'm coming to you live from the Muskogee Creek Reservation of downtown Tulsa. That's not going to get old to me anytime soon. I'm going to pull that out, say that any opportunity I'm able to. So, yeah. Hey, Russ. So I guess I'll start with a question I can ask you. So, oh, somebody said Hinshe. Yeah, Ashtungo. I love it that somebody's already speaking Muskogee, Brad.
That's 2020.
That's 2020.
They're just popping in and saying Hinsche, Stonko. Yeah.
Here, let me do a quick introduction then. Apollonia Chahojifkaros, Ijuogi Amalegidos, Dohasi, Wogogai Amadalwados. To just bring it full circle. So, Russ, we both grew up here, but we kind of, you know, we kind of have a lot of things in common and then some things not in common, which we can get into later. But you and I have done quite a bit of traveling, and we've heard people not from Oklahoma have opinions about our state. So whenever you tell people that you're from Tulsa, what is it you want them to know about Tulsa or Oklahoma?
Well, that's how long do I have? Right.
You have 45 minutes.
45. Well, that's probably not the only question we're going to have. But let me just say that by way of addressing that question, the first thing, the way I grew up understanding that question or wanting to respond to that question was, it's nowhere. Don't worry about it. Moving on. Don't ask any more questions, please. Yes, I said I'm from Tulsa. And if you're like, oh, is that in Arizona? Is that in Montana? I'd go, yeah, of course. There's nothing to see here. Moving on. And that's the way I kind of responded. I mean, I think until I was probably about 25 years old. And before I get to what happened then, let me just say that I like to point out that there are a couple cliches that I hold near and dear to my heart, even though they're cliches, because they formed my identity about Tulsa. One, and I don't know if Apollonia, if these were still circulating around in your millennial upbringing, but one I used to hear was that Tulsa was the test marketing capital of the world. And the idea was that if you had a new product and you wanted to see how the most average, middle of the road, Midwestern, milquetoast, boring American blah consumer would take to your new product, well, you should take it to Tulsa because that's what Tulsa was. And the other cliche I heard was that Tulsa had more churches per capita than any city in the country. And that one's, I mean, both of those things, you know, superficially, I think sound right. It's sort of at least the image Tulsa wanted to project of itself in the 80s and 90s. it was anywhere. It was any town USA and open for business. And, it was it was also very religious. And of course we know about ORU and all that sort of stuff. So that was the kind of the way that I thought about it, and so people would say, where are you from? I'm from Tulsa. That's the image I would have given them. And then things really shifted for me dramatically when I was at graduate school in the University of Texas at Austin. And I had just finished my master's degree in Spanish and Latin American studies. And because I would never think to study or write or research the place I come from, it was so boring. And I was looking through the library and I saw Scott Ellsworth's book, Death in a Promised Land.
Yeah.
It's also Race Riot of 1921.
Yeah.
And I pulled that book off the shelf. And I remember just sitting down on the floor of the library in Austin and reading it and going, there's no way this is written by a historian, but there's no way this is true. And so I called my mom, who actually worked at what is now, at the time it was called UCAT. It was like a university consortium. Now it's OSU Tulsa. So in Greenwood itself. And I worked my summer jobs there packing books. And I said, Mom, there's this book about a race riot in Greenwood, And she said, yeah, let's there's something about that. But, I remember, coming here, she had come here to Tulsa in the 50s as a young girl from Muskogee, and she was sort of told, don't go talking about that stuff. Don't go picking at old wounds. And of course, me being a kind of a shit disturber by nature, I was like,
we work so well and research so well together. We're both contrarian.
I was like, oh yeah, now it's on. What else? And so ever since then, it's kind of been, my mission has been to find out the true story of Tulsa, publish the unvarnished truth, as John Hope Franklin told us.
Yeah. Okay, that was a good response. That was a very Russell Cobb response to what I thought was going to be a simple question. God. So, okay, so when did you start researching and writing for this book? Like, how many years in aggregate do you think it took putting this book together? And that's still, which we'll get to later, that now you and I are both working on for a different project.
Yeah, right. So like a very brief history of what happened is I had that, that initial encounter, and I started to think, well, maybe there's more to the story of my hometown than there had been. And then some years went by and I didn't really think about it. And, this little upstart publication came on the scene, I want to say about 2010. This Land Press. Got my crusty t-shirt here. And I don't know if Michael Mason's out there, but,
He's doing something.
He's out there somewhere. Much love to Michael Mason. And I didn't even know about it. I was already up here in Canada, and I saw the first issue and I thought, this is the kind of stuff I want to do. This is the kind of writing I want to do. Digging deeper into telling the stories in a rich narratively rich way, true stories of the place. And so we talked, and I started writing for them. I wrote a story about the disenfranchised African Americans who left Oklahoma, the Black townships, to come to Alberta, Canada, where I happen to be. And I thought I'm uniquely placed to look into that, and that went well. And then I started, and I said, I remember the second issue, I was like, Michael, like you're probably going to say no to this, but man, I am just so obsessed with like where in the, pardon my French, but where in the fuck is Oklahoma? Is it the Midwest? Because people say it's the Midwest, and I don't think that's right. I think it's the South, but it's not quite the South, and it's not the Southwest. And he was like, just write about that. And so I wrote about it, and it ended up being one of their most read articles. Anyway, I started doing a lot of writing for them, and then, all good things must come to an end. And things kind of ended just as I was writing the most present focused article I ever wrote for them, which was on the idea of Oklahoma as a failing state. And this is back in about 2016, 2017, when everything was really going down the tubes. I mean, not that it's not now, but it was just starting to circle the drain, where we were sort of number 50 in teacher pay and number 1 in incarceration and all just basically the bottom of the barrel. And so then that was sort of like a culmination. After I finished that and I wrote it for The Guardian, I thought, this is kind of like the bookend of the story of Oklahoma, And so my pitch became Oklahoma is incredibly messed up, but also kind of a brilliant place. How did it get that way? And so that's what the book is about, really. That's the narrative of the book. And then I wrote it. And then as I was finishing it, I wanted to bring someone in and sort of like look at it a second or third, fourth, fifth time. And I put out a call on Facebook and I was like, does anybody, interested in doing this? And you popped in and I was like, okay, here you go. Enjoy. And that led to our present research project, but we'll get to that in a little bit. We have some fun. We have some, I won't call it fun. We have some exciting news, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
We will talk about that. We'll definitely get to that. By the way, Russ, I think we've had this discussion. Oklahoma is totally the Mid-South. So for all the people watching right now, I just want them to know Oklahoma is totally Mid-South.
Yeah, but if you say Mid-South, like, do people know what that is? Like, I kind of agree with you. I kind of do. I kind of don't, actually. But I mean, I know there's Mid-South wrestling and old timers that follow, like, really, I see already people are popping in the chat. If you want to, by the way, pro tip.
Oh my God, that's a hot topic. Look at this. People are really.
If you want to light up your social, if your social media feed is boring, just make some claim. And I swear to God, this is like the longest thread I've ever had. I was like, I think Oklahoma is part of the South, and people were like, no way, it's the Midwest. No way, it's the Southwest. No way, it's the Mid-South. No, it's the South, Midwest. So, yeah, but no, Mid-South's a good one. I like Southern Plains. What do you got against the Southern Plains? What about Southern Plains?
I don't have anything against the Southern Plains. I have a lot of Native friends that are Southern Plains tribes people, rugged as they may be. But yeah, no, I just think it has a lot of the components of a Midwestern state, but we're not Midwestern the way that like Nebraska is Midwestern.
Right.
We also have a lot of Southern qualities to us too, but we're not South like how Georgia is the South. It's like Oklahoma is a state that is still very much confused about its identity.
Absolutely. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it is. I mean, even still not understanding, like, is this area in Northeast Oklahoma, is this a reservation after all? Yeah, it is. Nothing changed, y'all. Like, you just finally recognized it, and it took the Supreme Court to force you guys to recognize that this is the Creek Reservation.
Right. The McGirt decision, it kind of spins this question in a different direction, because now you've got, the largest, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the largest Indian reservation in North America, right? Am I right?
I don't think we could say that. I think the largest res might be Navajo, but I don't want to be quoted on that and be incorrect.
This is one of the perils of just spinning, but it's one of the biggest. And the thing is, it's like now, it throws that whole question off, because it's like, we're so unique, right? I mean, what other part of the Midwest or South, or even, maybe Southwest aside, or Midwest or South, has that part of its identity built in? Like, Oklahoma's unique in that way. So in a way, like, now I almost feel like we don't even need to address that question. It's like, no, we're our own thing, all right? Especially Eastern Oklahoma. It's its own thing, and if you want to come in, but just don't come at me with this Midwestern garbage anymore. That's what I don't like.
I know. I don't ever want to claim Midwestern. God, get out of here. Don't bring that in this house.
That's boring.
I know. So Okay, so let's go back a few steps because I always think it's kind of an interesting story to tell now of how you and I ended up meeting. And now we're like, you know, buds, research buds, but at first, you know, so just for the people watching this right now and the viewers, I have to tell this story of how Russ and I met. And this was a couple of months before the gathering place was supposed to open up. And I was researching, and I was researching about the creek origins, allotment origins of the gathering place, and I was starting to write an article about that. And then this dude, Russell Cobb, ended up writing an article about that exact same thing, and he got published before me. And I mean, if I'm being honest here, I was a little pissed off about that. And I was having my Native friends on Facebook like DM me like, have you seen this guy, weren't you working on this article? And I was. And so I immediately just friended him on Facebook, and he accepted. And then I immediately direct messaged him, and I was like, hey, I'm glad that you wrote that article. Good job. But I just think it would have been better had it come from the perspective of a Creek female. But thanks for writing it anyways. And it was a little harsh, right? I was mad.
Yeah. Well,
but
yeah.
You responded back, and I wasn't.
Yeah, I thought I was like, oh no, I'm gonna get. Here I am, yet another well-intentioned white guy trying to do the right thing, and I've stepped in it. And I said, and I was like, well, the only thing to do now is just to try to talk about this like as forthrightly as possible. And well, then it became an interesting conversation, right? Because the subject was, and I don't know, I mean, we're probably preaching to the choir here with a lot of people. I mean, we're talking Magic City. This is our home. This is home field, right? We're on the home field advantage here. Like, we don't have to explain a lot of this stuff that you might have to explain in other contexts. But we were basically looking at the same question, which is the Creek man by the name of Tuckabudgie, whose allotment sort of overlaps. His allotment and his son, Ned Tuckabudgie's allotments are very much the heart of the gathering place. They also actually happen to be the heart of Sunset Terrace, which is the southern part of Maple Ridge, which is my hood. I know I probably shouldn't call it the hood because it is exactly not the hood. It is decidedly not the hood. However, that was sort of like like I mentioned, discovering or not discovering, but coming to terms or finding out about the Tulsa Race Massacre in that library in Austin. The second iteration of that was, this happened only like maybe, like 4 years ago, that I started to look into that. I wanted to write about the gathering place because I, grew up a football tosses field from like part of it. And I was like, and this land was still functioning. So I thought, and then I kind of came across that, and I thought, holy moly, this is a crazy story. And came across some research that Tuckabudgie, who had his family cabin there, had buried 17 family members. The man died quite old. There's conflicting accounts about how old exactly, probably around 95, but he had buried 17 family members on 28th, basically around 28th Street and Cincinnati, which is a half a block from where I grew up. And I thought, oh my God, what? There is other stuff they haven't told us about. And so that's why I decided to write about it. And then when I got your message that you've been writing about it, I thought, okay, this is either going to go like really wrong, and this is going to be, this is going to suck, or we'll see. And actually, Apollonia, why don't you, what happened next in your reading of the thing?
You wrote me back a very diplomatic message, and I could tell you had like thought about it, because you know how it says like seen, like, so you know somebody read your message.
Yeah.
And then like an hour and a half later, you wrote me back and
Yeah.
you said something like, I think you said something like, yeah, I've read some of your writing. Yeah, you're probably right. It would have been better from the perspective of a female Creek person, but I didn't know that you were writing about it. We should collaborate sometime. And that was like not what I was anticipating you to say at all. And I was like, damn it, he's kind of nice. And, you know, I'm so used to dealing with, I'm just going to be blunt here, as like a Native female that went to OU, and I'm proud that I went to OU. A lot of great professors there. That said, I'm also sick of white academics talking about Indian history kind of over Native people. And I'm not going to name names, but there's a few professors at OU that do that. And so, and not really having like this collaborative research approach when they go into a community. They just go kind of data mine from a community, get what they want, and then leave, and don't try to do anything to like help or benefit that community that they are researching about. So we're just kind of like these exotic, interesting pieces. But I think it was like a couple of months after that, you needed help, somebody looking at your book, right? Fact checking, kind of
yeah, like a once over of the edits.
And then kind of too, for the parts where you're talking about Native and Creek history, kind of like cultural competency on that. And so I was a little nervous about doing that with you because I'm so used to white academics, just like you try to engage in a conversation with them and they just like rebuff you or like, no, that's not quite how it is. No. And it's like, well, you're talking about my tribe and, you know, people that may indirectly be related to me. I think I have a good idea about my culture more than you. And that was not how you were at all. And so, you know, I hope this doesn't come across the wrong way, but you're like the ideal white academic, you know, like we can have a very open discourse and talk about it and you don't get all offended and try to like argue with me about points. And like I thought I knew we were going to be able to work well together when in the book you had written 5 civilized tribes. And I said, no, we need to take that out. Just write 5 tribes. Please don't put 5 civilized tribes. And I wrote this long thing of about why that was so problematic. And you're like, oh, I never thought about it that way before. Done. And you just did it. And I was like, this Russell Cobb, he's all right. This one.
It's one of the good ones.
One of the good ones.
Yeah.
I got a white academic friend, okay?
All right, so I think that's a good point to pivot to what happened next, and there is some of this in the book, and really a lot of this discussion back and forth happened around the chapter 3, which is called "The Road to Hell in Indian Territory," and because it was something that I was just learning about, you know, as I was writing. I didn't have a scholarly background in it. I didn't grow up knowing it. I hadn't even really studied it. I was just trying to learn about it as on the fly. And so one of the things that I was doing is I was looking at, you know, the main, like I said in, you know, in the book, is that the main through line, even though the subject matter is quite different, you know, we go from like Jews in small town Oklahoma to, you know, Creek Nation to, you know, the Tulsa Sound. The through line to me is oil, right? Because oil has so dramatically shaped the culture, the people, the economy of Oklahoma, that it's the through line. So like I was I got really obsessed with, I think that's like a mild word, is obsessed with the way that oil shaped what we came to know as Tulsa. And but to do that, right, like I had to understand what had come before, which was Muskogee Creek Nation, right? Muskogee Creek Nation as an entity that was the sovereign of this land, right? And then comes the Dawes Commission and says, no, you're going to break up your collectively held structure and you're going to allot it to individual citizens. And I felt like, okay, I get that, but what then transpired and how did this happen? Because I started to find these crazy ass stories. And I think the one that, you know, we can pivot to is one I saw that just didn't make sense to me, concerns this woman here. Her name is Minnie Atkins. And I had found this story about the philanthropist and oil man Charles Page and how he had taken in Mrs. Atkins, taken care of her, and because she had a son named Tommy, whose allotment, so there's 160 acres out in Creek County, was on the heart of this big oil well. And when I remember looking at this and going, okay, but Minnie Atkins she's Creek to me. Like she even has like artifacts from Carlisle Indian School saying that she's Creek, and yet the rolls, she's not on these Dawes rolls. So I was like, Apollonia, can you please explain this to me? Because am I just a stupid white boy? Or what the hell's going on here? Something's weird. And then what happened? I don't know. What you tell the people what happened next?
I don't know. What did we do? Like, we've done so much at this point. I'm like, which time when we were discussing the Dawes rolls?
When we were still writing, when I was still writing,
it can be, and
mm-hmm.
you know, like various trips to Okmulgee, Oklahoma, to go to the Creek Cultural Archives and talking to them, you know, and talking to some elders down there. Or we were just, you know, hashtag sovereignty, going out to some of these oil allotment fields ourselves, trying to do some historical recovery there.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like that was like kind of opened up a whole nother world to me, you know, as this white boy from Maple Ridge, was to go to Creek Nation and start and realize that, you know, there were lots of names, lots of stories, lots of people. There is a whole history that had been cut out, just completely erased from the story that Tulsa tells itself. And I this may come off as a little harsh, but I got to say it. I mean, I've been waiting to say this for a long time. You know, it's when we think about what Tulsa is, right? The essence, like the master narrative of Tulsa, it still to this day is evident from the time you walk off a plane in Tulsa International Airport and you see that huge mural at the arrival saying of white men, and they're all white and they're all men, drilling for oil. It's like a big mural. It's hidden in plain sight. You may have not even seen it. You go down 21st Street and you see the Golden Driller, you know, one of the largest statues of a person, I guess you can call him a person, in the entire world. It's in the plaque. And I wish people would stop and read the actual plaque, because it says, to the men of the petroleum industry who have created by God's abundance a better life for mankind. To, you know, the way we name our sports teams, to the very identity that is just in the ether, the stories we tell in school and in museums. Look at our best museums. They're named after oil men. Now, I think that to me, so if there's something I really want to stress, and then what I think is going to be like part two and what we're doing next, is to not say that that narrative is evil, or that it's like should be canceled or whitewashed. That's not at all. But rather to say that that is one side of the story. And by focusing on that side of the story, we're not getting the entire story. We don't know the names of the people who were swindled. I have to tell you one more story about Apollonia. I don't know if I've told you this story, but a dear family friend.
Tell this story, and then we have an audience question that I think pretty relevant, and so then you can answer.
Okay, sure.
Okay.
Okay, so I have a dear family friend in Tulsa who has helped me with my mom's property in Maple Ridge. My mom passed away, and she said, I got the abstract of the property, and I was actually interested in like the segregation, like the restrictions, the covenants, and the restrictions on Black people. And I said, but what about this guy in here who's like the first private owner, Tuckabudgie? And she's like, that's the dead Indian. So she said, the dead Indian. She said, everybody in Tulsa who deals in real estate knows about the dead Indian. And I remember going like, the dead Indian has a name. The dead Indian was an actual person. He's not just some mythical figure. And so that's kind of like, you know, that's where I think that once we start to know those stories and to see the role of oil in shaping and sometimes repressing those stories, we start to see a better picture, a more holistic picture of the city of Tulsa and the state of Oklahoma. Anyway, I feel like that was a little high horsey.
Yeah, that was a Russell Cobb answer. But it's great. So here's one here. Somebody named Gretchen asks, how are the chapters organized? What are the specific topics in the book? Why did you use the word swindle? She'd like to know more about the book's contents.
Okay, I'll try not to give a Russell Cobb answer, Gretchen. I wanted to tell stories that are not part of sort of like the mythology, the popular mythology of Oklahoma, you know, where the wind comes sweeping down the plains and the waving wheat and the boomer sooner. I wanted to strip that away and see what the real story of Oklahoma was. So it's loosely organized, I'll admit. It's not necessarily like one set of characters, but you're gonna get a lot of snapshots of the true story of Oklahoma.
Okay.
See? Short and sweet.
Hey, that was good. That was real good, Russ. Here's another one from somebody named John, who asks, as somebody who lived likely on Tuckabudgie's land and still lives in this area, what would you think would be a way for us to commemorate him either in our daily lives or in a bigger gesture? What has Gathering Place said about Tuckabudgie and commemorating him at the park?
John, thank you so much for that question. That is a very important question. And I think that Tulsans, whether they lived on Tuckabudgie's allotment or on Wiley Naharkey's allotment or Millie Naharkey's allotment, you go down the names, there's hundreds of them, should be asking questions like this. Now, that being said, I don't think I have the right, you know, it's not really my place to come up with that answer, but I think it's the right question. One thing I've seen, and I want to, Apollonia, I think you should have, I want to hear what you have to say about this, but one thing I've seen, a gesture that I've seen that actually makes a lot of sense to me, it would just like narratively just makes a lot of sense, is I saw one Creek citizen say that the Midland Valley Trail, which used to be a railway that ran through there, should be renamed for Tuckabudgie. And to me, that's one thing that I'm totally for, because I've tried to read as much as I can about Tuckabudgie, and one of the things I know about him is that he died as an old man, and one of the last things that he said, you know, he'd gone through removal, the Civil War, like everything. And he said the thing that he resented the most in life was granting the white man a damn easement to run that railway through his land. And the Gathering Place, in terms of its response, well, I'll just say this: it's been lacking.
It's definitely been lacking, and how can I answer this? Before the Gathering Place opened, I was one native amongst some other natives that were asked to kind of talk about our native perspectives of the Gathering Place. And I thought we were gonna have more conversations with Gathering Place folk, but those did not come to fruition. I do like the gathering place. I take my son there, back when we could go. But I think that considering the psychogeography of Oklahoma and Tulsa and the gathering place and how so much of this land was set aside for my tribe, this was all supposed to be our allotment lands. Like, we were forcibly removed here. My family in particular, we were forcibly removed from Alabama, and we're told that we would come here, this would be our land. And that again proved to be false, another swindle. And
to quote Neil Gorsuch, at the end of the trail was a promise.
God bless him. Yeah, at the end of the trail was a promise, another promise that was yet again broken. So as far as a response, I think people just recognizing, and not getting so defensive whenever Native people, Indigenous people try to talk about these histories very candidly, and instead of just having these like comeback answers towards us that often are very disrespectful, and just trying to be cognizant, be conscious and aware of these histories. Every year my tribe, we do a commemorative thing at the council oak tree, which isn't too far away from the gathering place. It would be nice to see something like that happen at the gathering place, honoring the man Tukabachi, because he was a very interesting man and very respected, and there's a lot of things written about him. And just for the city of Tulsa as a whole to continue having conversations with us Creek citizens about us, and us being able to have more input into decision making as well, because we often get left out of that, or if we do, it's very last minute, just so that people can kind of like check a box.
So they did that consultation. Yeah,
we talked to the Indians. Hey, let me see if there's any more questions.
Yeah, I see some good questions here. Somebody's saying that their father read it, one of the best books ever. Oh, thank you, Lisa. That's nice. Aaron Griffin. I hope Aaron Griffin doesn't mind that I'm giving a shout out to him, but he was the one who sent to me a petition to rename Midland Valley Trail for Tuckabudgie, and yeah. Somebody wants you to name names, Apollonia. Don't do it.
Oh, I know who that is, and I'll just talk to her privately. That was my old director from the McNair Scholars Program.
Okay, let's see. Somebody's asking about Henry Starr, notorious bank robber Paul Curry. I'll have to plead ignorance on that one. Other examples that deserve more attention that you would like to share? Well, I think we're just gonna have to get to our story in just a minute, but let's make sure we go through some of these questions. The impact of the recent Supreme Court decision. You and I were talking a little earlier about the McGirt decision, and I said, "Oh no, they're going to ask us about this." And I remember you said something interesting. You said, "Well, I think lawyers themselves don't quite know what it means, right?"
Yeah, and I'm just going to be the first to say I don't necessarily want to touch that, because yeah, I'm a Creek citizen, but my background is in science and math and like history research. I am not a native legal scholar. Legal stuff confuses me, especially when it gets complicated by native legal things. All I know, here's what I can tell you, is that whenever native court cases go to the Supreme Court, about 75% of the time, the Supreme Court does not rule in favor of native people. So for the Supreme Court to rule in favor of my tribe, that's a big win. And that just is not something that happens very often, which is why it is so exciting for Creek people. But it's still new. And I think that attorneys are still kind of navigating it themselves of how they're going to implement this new decision. And it's kind of too soon to say what the full impact is going to be of it, but we will see it in the coming years of how it will affect native people here.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like, it was probably the biggest decision in 100 years, and it's probably going to take another 100 years to really sort out what it means. On that note, there's a great question from Alethea, my former classmate at Cassia, because she's interested in the Wannabe Tribe chapter. Do you fear that the more the story of Tulsa is told, the more people be claiming Indian heritage? Oh,
Wait. Where is that one? Let me see that one.
right there is, there's one down there at towards the Lethea Savo, right before Eli's question.
Oh.
See that?
Oh, okay.
All I'll say about that is I think that is an old story, believe it or not. And I think part of what's interesting about looking back at like the Dawes Commission is that you see people like Minnie Atkins here who were clearly, for political reasons, written out of the Dawes Commission. And then you see other people, and maybe we shouldn't name any names because some of them maybe hold high political office, who were written in, perhaps fraudulently. Do you know who I'm alluding to, Apollonia?
Yeah. Maybe. I was looking at some of these chat questions because there was one I was going to answer.
I'm at the Q&A anyway.
Okay.
No, but I don't know. You know, it'll be interesting. You know, it'll be interesting because what I find just kind of like just a thorny but fascinating question is that so much of this stuff goes back to who was recognized by the Dawes Commission, and we know that if our current research project has taught us anything, it's that who was labeled an Indian and who got to be an Indian was highly political and had to do with oil, it had to do with political connections, and sometimes it had nothing to do with someone's actual heritage.
Yeah.
And I see Eli Grayson's on there asking about well, I saw Eli. I was like, assumed he'd be asking about the Freedmen, but
yeah.
but there are Angela Walton Raji is asking about the Freedmen. I mean it also, it's such a thorny. It's a chapter in history that we aren't taught. I didn't even know until I really started working on this book that there were slaves held by the 5 tribes.
Yeah.
Much less what the history was with them in terms of how they were granted citizenship or not, or kicked out and then reintegrated. So yeah.
Okay, I do want to kind of address what Melissa said, how she's this amalgamation of being Cherokee, Asian, and white. So this is my stance on it, right? Because you're saying that you're 1/8 Cherokee. I think blood quantum is total BS. Like, we don't ever, so this is how I view it, because I'm of mixed heritage too. And so when people ask me what I am, I generally just say I'm Muskogee and I'm Chicana. I'm also Scotch-Irish and I'm French as well. And with that, you could say you fit in everywhere and nowhere at once. I go by how I identify culturally, and culturally, I grew up very Muskogee Creek. I did not grow up Scotch-Irish, nor did I grow up French. I also, it's always Stahudki people that ask me this at parties, when they ask me, are you Indian? Yes, I am Indian. Okay, but how much are you though? And I say enough, I'm Muskogee. And then I'll generally kind of have a flippant answer, and I'll say something to them in my language. And then I'll address it to them, where if they're, white, Nahulo or something, I'll say, well, what are you? And they'll say, oh, I'm Irish or German or something. And I'll say, okay, but how much are you? Are you like 1/16 German? Are you like 1/32? Like, and so that was always kind of fun to me because, European Americans aren't used to being asked to quantify their identity the way that us Indians are. It's, Indians, horses, and I can't remember the other thing, but we always have to prove our pedigree, right? And our Indianness. And the more that
Yeah.
we are, the more Indian, I guess, we are.
I would
Okay.
love to see that flip back and say, well, how American are you? You know, no, you're
Yeah.
either American or not. You're a U.S. citizen or you're not a U.S. citizen.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move
I
on.
identify as Muskogee first, and then kind of American second. Russ,
Yeah.
we need to talk about our project that we're running
Okay.
out of time. We need to talk
Okay.
about
Right. Let's do that.
Yeah.
Okay. So to bring this up to date, we, as Apollonia was fact checking the book, I mentioned this person, Minnie Atkins, that we started coming across in conjunction with the name of Charles Page. And really what we've stumbled across was one of the more remarkable stories I think I've ever encountered, fiction or nonfiction. And we turned over a rock, and there turned out to be this huge cavern that we all fell in. And we, I don't think it could be more timely, because it a lot of this question revolves on like who and who was not a citizen, and who did and who did not even exist. And this, without giving too much away, I'll say that this research project, which you'll read just a tiny bit of in Great Oklahoma Swindle, but we hope you can count on your support to tell it more fully, shows the power of the Dawes Commission to actually not even just include citizenship, but actually to create people. And so to put it really bluntly, we're trying to figure out whether this Creek boy named Tommy Atkins, who was allotted land out in Western Creek County, and whose oil well made Charles Page one of the richest men and most influential men in Oklahoma, was based on a fraud or not. The case went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court in 1922. And like a lot of things in the Supreme Court, they read it legally and said, well, we have paperwork from the Dawes Commission, congressionally appointed representatives went there and said there was a Tommy Atkins, ergo there is a Tommy Atkins. We're not satisfied with that. We think that there is a lot more to the story, and that the image that we have of a man like Charles Page, of Oklahoma's greatest philanthropist in the 1920s, is one of the many stakes that are involved in telling the story accurately. Yeah. So we would like, if this is stuff that you're really interested in.
Wait.
Go ahead. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, before we get to them, to continue to whet their interest, let's talk about who Sadie James is in Greenwood.
Hold on.
Right?
Yes, we'll talk about that in just a second.
Okay.
Let's just say that this being the best Oklahoma story you have, or best Tulsa story you have ever heard, it includes a brothel called the Bucket of Blood, run by one woman you've probably never, I'm going to bet the farm and say you've never heard of her. Her name is Sadie James. She was an African-American woman who ran this brothel, Bucket of Blood, in Greenwood, and I have an address for it, 504 North Archer Street. Anyone out there? Okay, quiz time. Who can tell me real quick, Don't Google it, what is now at 504 North Archer Street? Come on.
Yeah, come on. What is there right now today?
What is there right now in the chat? Come on, let's see if anyone can
down the street from Magic City Books. What is it, huh?
Yes, Gina got it. Okay, yes, the U-Haul building.
Yeah.
Now, we're not 100% sure, but we have one lead tells us that this Bucket of Blood brothel where Sadie James and went, and where she worked, and where Charles Page was a
regular,
let's say a frequent visitor.
Frequent flyer, more like.
He had a frequent flyer card at the Bucket of Blood, may have been at the U-Haul building in Greenwood. So you probably want to know more, don't you? Have we convinced you?
I think so. I mean, like, how can you go wrong with a story where, here's what's also kind of interesting in it, like contextually, Russ, is because you're a white dude and you're family's history is oil, right? And so that's also very much like Charles Page, but you're not Charles Page, thank God.
Oh man.
And then my
I have been to the
background, I
U-Haul
mean, like,
building, but not the bucket of blood brothel.
hey,
Just saying.
yeah. And then, you know, like the protagonist of this story is Minnie Atkins, a Creek woman removed from her homelands, you know. And so that's also kind of like my family story too.
Mhm.
But contemporarily, you and I are buds, we're friends, and we're researching this unique history together from our unique cultural perspectives of me being a Creek woman and you being a white dude from oil, you know, an oil family.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
you, but yeah. And so, yeah, there's a lot of context and a lot of layers to this story and a lot to unpack with it.
So what we're doing is Apollonia and I are going to be co-producers and co-writers of a podcast about it called The Ghost of Tommy Atkins that tries to get at all these different mysteries around Charles Page, Minnie Atkins, Sadie James, because it's never been written about, apart from the some little nuggets you'll read in the book. And yeah, we hope you can support it. We actually, with the generous help of KOSU, the NPR affiliate, they have come up with a way for you to just text message to get the trailer. We've produced a trailer. You'll get a text with the trailer. It's invitation only. You want to be a part of the club, the Tommy Atkins Club, or maybe we should just call it the Bucket of Blood Club.
The Bucket of Blood Club, please. Let's call that. Also, I'm just throwing this out there for any mixologists or bartenders of Tulsa, downtown Tulsa. Somebody please come up with a mixed drink called the Bucket of Blood. That would make me so happy. Somebody needs to come up with a mixed drink called the Bucket of Blood.
Yeah.
So do you want me to tell the number?
Yes, please.
Okay. I'll do it in my best Vanna White voice or something. So if you want to help support our research and continuing to do this research and our podcast, and to uncover these histories with us, you just need to text Tommy, TOMMY, to 844-777-7719. Okay, that is all uppercase, by the way. That is all uppercase Tommy. Text Tommy, TOMMY, to 844-777-7719.
And we're going to be reaching out and hopefully collecting emails as well, because what I'd really love to do, I think what we both love to do, is to share some of this history, because it's like it said, it's completely written out of the official narrative. And yet it says everything you could possibly want. It has everything you could possibly want from a good Tulsa story. You know, Sadie James, for example, we don't know what happened to her. We know she was married 7 times. And she shot one of her husbands, but was acquitted.
Deserved it.
Because she's a black woman in 1920 Tulsa, and she got acquitted. That woman, that guy had it coming. Let's just say.
I'm just saying, like, when y'all learn more about Sadie James, you're gonna fall in love with this woman. She is a spitfire. She's gold.
Anyway, we want to do this in an unconventional way and share a lot of the original primary source documents with you as we find it out. And so yeah, I mean, it's so we can wrap this up. I mean, by way of wrapping it up. I mean, it means the world to me to be able to share these kinds of stories with my fellow Oklahomans and fellow Tulsans. I wouldn't do what I do if it weren't interesting to other people. And I don't want another generation of Tulsans to just grow up and say, this is just a flyover state. I got to get out of here. I got to go someplace cool like Portland or Austin. No, you live in one of the most interesting places in the world, and hopefully I can visit you in person soon.
Yeah. I know, we're really overdue for vape tricks. By the way, just in case you wanted to know, people watching, vape tricks is the official drink of the Ghost of Tommy Atkins research team.
Yeah, so you can, Prairie, you can just go ahead and send us a few cases.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. And thank you for all the great questions. I'm sorry we didn't have a chance to get to a lot of them. I see a lot of people I know and love out there, and thank you so much for your support. Thank you, Magic City Books, for making Tulsa come alive, and it's the discussion around history and fiction. It's just generating a literary book culture that is inclusive of community. I'm just, I'm in awe of it. Maybe someday I'll get back there.
Oh, you'll get back down here. You have to.
Yeah. All right. Well, should we sign out now, or?
I guess we sign out now.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, and we'll see you soon.
Okay.
And thank you, Apollonia. Thank you for doing this.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for humoring me. Thanks for
all corrections and complaints shall be directed towards Apollonia.
Oh, somebody said Mado, Inga.
Mado. Okay. Yes. All right. Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.